Hello, this is Mark Keys. We're going to be performing today an interview for the Australian Strength and Conditioning Association, an interview with Ashley Jones. Ash, if you'd like to give us an introduction about yourself.
Hello there, Ashley Jones, currently the lead strength and conditioning coach for Edinburgh Rugby, based in Edinburgh, Scotland, and today we're going to be speaking about pre-season planning into transition from purely conditioning based off-season into rugby-specific, getting ready for trial matches.
Okay, so this should be a 30-minute conversation over which we're going to talk to Ash about his planned pre-season going forward for the next season, how this is developed, some of the plans that he's tried previously, how he's got to this plan, and how he's going to enter the pre-season. So first and foremost, Ash, I guess we should maybe go through your current structure and how you've come about that over the years.
Well, I think the pre-season obviously is our prime time for strength and conditioning to get some measurable, considerable gains in the physical parameters that we need to take into the pre-season itself, into the games. So it really is the only time that we get a good solid 3-week block in the course of a complete year that we can devote the majority of our time to strength and conditioning. Since I worked with the Crusaders for 8 seasons, we've been following a similar sort of plan transitioning here into Edinburgh. It's based around the use of a wide variety of major games, not only just rugby related, but games associated with a whole different skill set. It's also designed to individualise the program as much as possible, and looking at 3 key areas that are basically planning on from a metabolic perspective, a neural perspective, and a mechanical perspective as far as engineering performance for the game of rugby.
So if you'd like to just maybe touch on the actual week structure, how you set it up, like how the speed and power, how that's set out, how that program interlinks with the conditioning, the skills program, and how you kind of counteract like the system stressors, say example for strength, and then the system stressors for conditioning, how that relates to your week structure.
I guess first and foremost is to set some baselines, and I'm a firm believer that we give the players between 4 and 6 weeks off physically at the end of the previous season. So I really only want to do a cardiovascular aerobic test to begin the season, and in the past I've always done a 2,400 metre time trial, which is a 1.5 mile run in American terms. But I guess with the yo-yo being so heavily used across rugby these days, probably transition more into using the yo-yo. So we have certain standards for various positions across the board, and we need players to meet or be very close to those standards to allow them to transition into specific groups. If a person was to fail that particular standard coming into the pre-season, we allocate them towards a metabolic group. And so that metabolic group would be prime function of improving cardiovascular lactate tolerance training before they transitioned into any pure forms of anaerobic training. If they were to meet that particular aerobic demand, we'd probably transition them quickly more into a neural component, so a lot more speed and power type training. And the other group is mechanical. If we have a player who is particularly underweight or under strength, that we can ascertain through the first couple of sessions that we do in the pre-season, they transition more into a mechanical group, which would be designed primarily to put some hypertrophy on the individual. Some individuals we may not even worry too much about cardiovascular training, where we want to make sure that we prioritise the improvements in size and strength.
So I guess where we can go from this, if we look at the kind of more global structure of the pre-season, which we're looking at in the whiteboard here, just so we give the guys listening a frame of reference here, we're talking about a 2-day on, 1 day off, 2-day on, weekend off session, with the mornings being given towards more kind of speed, strength, skill type activities, and then the PMs kind of your heavy hitting conditioning activities. So if we maybe just look at each of your 3 primary groups and see how they'll fit within your week structure and how you're gonna make that work.
Yeah, previously I've run a 5-day pre-season, so basically only giving the players the weekend off. But really, found that they came into the back half of the week fairly fatigued. So we're going to start giving them a Wednesday complete day off, and they'll come into that Monday session and Thursday session with either 1 or 2 days off, so that we can actually really target the aspect of speed and power development as a priority in those morning sessions, rather than coming in slightly fatigued and not being able to allow us to train those particular biomotor qualities. So particularly the neural group, I really want them to emphasise more a training along, particularly for lower body as far as the gym is concerned, training along the force velocity curve, in using probably one of my signature programming techniques of speed power combos, where we would do start at the velocity end of the force velocity curve in supersetting between sprinting over 10-20 metres and some sort of ballistic or plyometric activity, such as a scoop toss with a med ball, or a depth jump, or some form of plyometric in that regards. We then transition up the force velocity curve, moving towards more the mid-range area, where it's a compromise between force and velocity, so it's more a speed strength aspect, where we would be doing jump squats.
Can you just run over that again? I just paused it by accident.
Okay.
So you're at the mid-range speed strength.
Would you be looking more at the transitioning from the velocity end to the mid-range, where we're looking at more speed strength and strength speed, so a combination of heavy prowler pushes, supersetted with power clean or clean pulls, and the speed strength elements with sled sprints with lighter prowler pushes, supersetted with jump squats or hang power snatch of some version such as that. And then at the back end of the workout, we want to emphasise the top end of the force curve, which would be more maximal strength, the squat or a deadlift pattern with more traditional loading patterns, looking at a 3-week load from introduction of, say, 3 to 4 sets of 5 repetitions at around 75% of maximum, through to heavy doubles and heavy triples towards the back end of that 3-week block. All in all, really keeping the focus on the speed element, and then the strength element at the back half of that. The upper body in that particular area is looking at more strength-based, so rather than hypertrophy-based training programs for our neural group, whereas compromise in that area would be to transition across the hypertrophy group, which is obviously more higher upper body hypertrophy type protocols. Still a huge believer in not focusing on hypertrophy for the lower body by way of any group, really looking at that strength as size as a byproduct of strength, in that if we get them strong enough to work, then we're going to get some transitional, I hate the word functional, but rugby specific hypertrophy for the playing staff that we need. So in that particular first, the Monday and the Thursday morning would be speed and power, followed by lower body weights, or a combination of weights with the speed and power, as I've just alluded to. The Tuesday and the Friday morning is more upper body and what we've come to term combat rugby conditioning. So it's a combination of wrestling, boxing, contact work with pads around with our defensive coaches and our forwards coaches, a lot of down and up, get off the ground quickly, move, transition to the next activity, utilising other aspects of combat training. A little bit of MMA work. We have a particularly good MMA school here in Edinburgh, which we use the services of their coaches to work with our guys as far as ground technique is concerned, but really allows us to physically prepare the players to transition more into the contact elements of rugby as we move from the initial 3-week pre-season into the next block of training. The afternoons take on a different format, is more our conditioning elements, and we are very, very big on con games. So irrespective of where that individual's aerobic score was on the initial testing, we want to involve con games as much as possible, so that individuals got the ball in hand. They basically don't realise how much work they're actually doing, which we monitor through heart rate and GPS, but it also looks at the different skill sets we're trying to develop. So we're looking at spatial awareness, we're looking at movement control, we're looking at ball in hand activities, and we have quite a wide range of con games, which I'm sure all your listeners are associated with. The aspect of skills is never far away from our program. We really need to touch on skills probably an hour a day, 45 to an hour a day, every day through the pre-season, because we don't want to improve biomotor quality skills without actually looking at the rugby skills concurrently. We use a lot, as I mentioned earlier, of major games and other activities on these particular afternoon sessions. So the Monday and the Thursday session, we have squash, we have European handball, we have water polo and basketball, which I've found over the years to be fantastic conditioning games, but also fantastic skill transition games for rugby. On Tuesday and Friday afternoons, we emphasise more the con games with intervals for our metabolically challenged individuals. The normal group would basically just do the con games and then go straight into do upper body weights. The guys who haven't passed their metabolic test would then continue on and do some form of metabolic training after the con games, so VO2 grids based off their yo-yo scores and a wide range of running activities. And in some positions, because of the nature of their position, we may even use some older style work such as fartlek conditioning as well. A particular favourite of mine, if we can get onto a golf course, which obviously is very hard in Scotland, but looking at a fartlek golf course session where you do a running activity, either a sprint on the par 3s, a stride out on the par 4s, or a fast jog on the par 5s between the tee and the green, and then walk from the green to the next tee. Most golf courses are between, say, 7 and 10 kilometres, so it gives us a really, really good fartlek conditioning session, primarily for our tighter forwards, but can be benefit to all particular groups. I like the aspect of the water polo later in the week as well, because it serves as a water-based training session, so it's a recovery in nature, but it's still quite combative, and obviously a lot of aerial skills and involved in water polo, so they have that level of skill interaction as well. And obviously basketball, a lot of finding space, which are all key elements of sports games. And then we have aspects of teamwork and spatial awareness and those elements as well.
Cool. I think that covers quite well sort of the global week structure, and also how your speed, power, or your neural group fits into that remit. So I think the next thing we can touch on would be your skinny guys, or the guys in the mechanical group, and how their week might kind of juxtapose the week of like, would you alter the amount of conditioning they do? Would you look to replace certain, like the con game and the intervals on Tuesday? Would you look to do a hypertrophy session with that? What sort of nutritional protocols would you like to introduce with that? How would you go around working with the skinny guys?
Well, fortunately, we have a really good nutritionist here at Scottish Rugby with Richard Chesser, and he basically individualises the nutrition program to the needs of the player really, really well. So with our sponsor, MSC Sports Nutrition, we have a wide range of nutritional supplementation strategies we can put into place. But I think our biggest aspect is obviously to stimulate the hypertrophy in the first place. So rather than looking at a major cardiovascular programming, which would be counterproductive for the amount of work we're trying to do in the gym, we'd really pull back on their overall running-based fitness, and we may go to more of a off-feet conditioning with rowing machines, skiing ergometers, Versa climbers, that sort of training. But I still don't want to drop the con games out of that particular group, because irrespective of the needs of the player from a strength, power, size perspective, they still need to obviously play the game of rugby. So we need to continue that skill acquisition aspect of conditioning concurrently with the fun element of games. But I will pull them out of the intervals and other aspects such that outside. But we would also do a double day on the upper body session. So Tuesday and Friday would then become an AM/PM session based around strength and power with the AM session, and then more size protocols in the PM session. So push-pull supersets are very high in our training protocols, but also a whole wide range of hypertrophy strategies based around eliciting those gains in cross-sectional area.
Cool. And then finally, we will go on to the thighs. So how do you look to, bear in mind we're looking at this right now and it's absolutely jam-packed with activity. How do you need to add extras? What extras do you add? Do you look to maybe take a bit more of a nutritional protocol with those guys, like kind of the reverse, or do you look to add in, and how do you believe in handling the kind of behavioural things that have brought them to this base? Like if a guy goes away in good shape and comes back in horrible shape, there's obviously there's maybe some underlying issues that you need to address, or how do you go around? Because it's quite a thorny issue within the remit, because it's not really our place to pry. So how do you deal with that kind of scenario?
Well, first and foremost, if it impacts on performance, it is our position to pry. So I think it's important to obviously look at all elements of the physical strength and conditioning side of the menu here. Is that if it's not broke, you don't fix it. So if a person comes in horrendous physical condition, you'd have to basically ask why, and I think that could come back down to simple interview techniques with the player involved in one-on-one. And I think bottom line is, particularly younger players that are transitioning from academy programs into professional programs, they don't often have the skills that they need to actually transition well. So I think that's where the nutritionists can come on board quite well. And in the past, I've had them take them on shopping trips, basically go to their house, and this could be quite invasive, but to look at what they have in their fridge, what they have in their cupboards, and then to take them on a shopping trip and say, well, these are the sort of things you need to be eating on a regular basis to assist in gaining the physical size you need to play your position. In the past, I've seen some programs that have a financial cost in being over fat coming back into the program. I'd probably want to steer away from that, or that's a last resort aspect to consider. But I guess with the emphasis that certain programs place on skin folds, obviously there has to be an intervention put into place if someone is too far over. But I've really always believed that if the player is still playing good rugby and is performing well, then do we really need to go overboard on the skin folds? If someone's 20 mils above the standard, is that going to be that big an impact on their performance? Will they play better if they're 20 mils down? Or do we look at other areas of their performance and try and target a slow, steady reduction over the course of the time? I'm very much performance oriented, so it comes down to a one-on-one conversation and how we address that, because everyone obviously is going to have different issues and different lifestyle aspects as well. It could be the fact that the players just introduced a new baby to the world as well too, so their entire nutrition aspects have been thrown out the window with some elements, but we need to keep people on track, but with always the performance orientation. And often it's the heavier players playing the position, such as our tight forwards, that the ones with the cardiovascular challenges. So to continue to run them, we then open ourselves up to potential other injuries as far as soft tissue and joint issues are concerned. So we have to balance that need to become more cardiovascular fit with the needs for their position and their size and their strength elements as well. So I guess a lot more off-feet conditioning for those guys is the way we would target our extras program. Again, the emphasis is on con games because we want to improve the skill positions. We want to try and improve our guys so that, as you see from the All Blacks game in, game out, if they have a tight forward that's in the attacking line, in normal situations, we want them to be able to transition the ball to the outside guys, not have that tendency that a lot of tight forwards have of saying, oh, I can't pass, I need to carry into contact, and then suddenly that opportunity of a 3-on-2 is broken. We need to actually continue to develop that skill element. So if they are over fat, that becomes an issue. Then we have to look at strategies based around off-feet conditioning, possibly a small amount of increased running is concerned, but we don't want to actually put detriments on other elements of performance as well.
As a continuation to this line of thought, which I think is really good, do you think that's possibly an element where a lot of programs miss a trick, whereas a guy who may be over fat and under conditioned, the preseason already represents a massive increase relatively to him and his current physical capabilities? Do you think perhaps increasing the volume of that is an injustice to that person, or not really reflective of their current physical condition? Should we be looking at, well, actually the preseason as is represents quite a substantial physiological stress to this person? Should we be looking as, do we need to be, basically the question I'm getting at, is extras like a punitive and unnecessarily punitive way of looking at that person's program?
Obviously what you'd like is to have players come back in a small percentage down from where you left them at the end of the previous season, but obviously some players tend to finish the season and then stop completely. We would always send players off with a program to do probably twice a week to keep them going. I think players should have a complete break for at least a week, 10 days at the conclusion of the season. And from the mental stress is probably 4 to 6 weeks, but I think after 2 weeks players are really wanting to get back into some regular training because that's basically what they do. But if they do drop off the page, so to speak, I think the shock of the pre-season bringing them back into action is sort of enough. I think we need to look at intensification of programming. We need to individualise as far as where they are. What they're doing is concerned as well, but I think you're right as far as the punitive extras tends not to be psychologically well received by certain players, so we can actually look at different ways to achieve that goal. And I think it's again comes down to that basic question that I always emphasise is how are you feeling today? What's going on outside of rugby for you? Is there something that we can need to discuss in details, or what do you need to be the best you can be coming back into the season? So a conversation, I'll try and give a conversation on a regular basis whilst they're away from us, even if it's just via email, touch base and say, well, what have you been doing the last couple of weeks? How are you feeling? What's been happening? But I think that's important to continue to have that human contact, and interpersonal skills obviously within this business is a massive component. You can have all the science in the world, but if you can't deliver it on a personal basis and make that one player in a squad of 45 feel special, feel loved and feel needed, then irrespective of how good you are as a strength and conditioning coach, you're just not going to get the result. So I think that's also very, very important to push as far as this massive pre-season is concerned as well.
Well, I'm glad we've managed to touch on that from someone who's been working with Ashley for the last 3 years. One of the huge strengths that he brings to the program is that relationship building, and the impact that he has with players is absolutely phenomenal if you see it in person. So I'm really good we could actually touch on that. I guess as we kind of roll in now towards the back end of this interview, the last 7 minutes, I think we can talk about it now. I think we've got a good idea of your thought process behind the pre-season. We'll just touch on the recovery just now, and how you'd like to implement that, and how that adds to your program.
I think it's essential really to look at the recovery strategies that you put in place. Obviously there are a lot of recovery strategies out there, and again, individualisation about what certain things work best for some players. Like, I'm a huge believer in pool sessions, recovery sessions in the pool, as the key area that I like to use, but continually using that takes the gloss off it, I think. So I think we need to have a load of fun games we can do in the pool as well. So passing games, even just even a stuck in the mud game where you have to dive underneath your partner's legs to free them, and continue like a chasing game and tag games. All those sort of things make the activity fun. A little bit of volleyball in the deep end of the pool over the false start rope is also very good. But looking at some of the restoration techniques, I think DeFranco's Limber 11 is, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. I mean, the man's come up with a fantastic use of stretching, foam roller activities, so we might as well put that, and that's one of our key areas that we have in our gym, that we have a mat area where players can go, and there are photocopied prints of the Limber 11 up there, and we also have it on YouTube video that they can link into. So that would be a Tuesday and a Thursday type recovery protocol, and the pool recovery on the Monday, and we have the water polo on the Thursday afternoon as well. So we have that water basis at least twice a week. Then on the Friday we sort of finish up a little bit early to get players away from the environment, so we sort of turn that over to them for their own recovery. We have access to the Village Fitness Centre here in Edinburgh, so we find a lot of players going down and using their pool and sauna and spa and other aspects. Unfortunately, we don't have our own recovery centre here, which is something longer term we'd really like to invest in. are given the opportunity with the elements of the cryotherapy and infrared sauna, plunge pools and the like. We do have hot and colds. Some days in Edinburgh when the temperature doesn't get much above freezing, the hot and colds tend to be a bit difficult to get people to entice them into. But certain players really get a lot out of them. Some players say they don't get anything out of them. So again, this is the element that we try and individualise as much as possible. But I guess the aspect of stretching, foam rolling, pressure point release, massage therapy are all fairly high elements within our restoration recovery programs at the end of every training day. And we like to players to stay active over the course of the weekend rather than just clock off on a Friday and expect to come back on Monday and roll into the training session once again.
Cool. And I guess that recovers quite nicely the pure conditioning element now. So we'd like to talk about what we plan to do when we move to a rugby-focused element of our pre-season and how you look to transition into that and still keep up the physical training and achieve the goals you want there during that period.
I guess the transition into incorporating more rugby into the program, as I said before, we have each training day during the pre-season we have an hour of skill development, but it's more individualised skills, so basically catch and pass, carry into contact, structural, technical type skills rather than placing too much demands on the individual player. Every session starts the day with either a readiness to train and a monitoring aspect. So readiness to train associated with heart rate monitoring, heart rate variability. Also monitoring associated with knees to wall, groin squeeze, grip squeeze, internal external rotation of hips and shoulders, so that we look at and sit and reach test to see where players are from the previous day's activity. So we need to put in any interventions to allow that player to remain injury free, and also mobility and prehab, connection between the physio staff and the strength and conditioning staff to set the stage for the training day on other days of the week as well. So we need to transition that into the in-season preparation game side of things, whereas I guess Robbie Deans, when I used to work with him, used to say really well that the immediate pre-season is the strength and conditioning coach gets more or less the entire loaf of bread. When we transition into the starting of games, the strength and conditioning coach gets a couple of slices, and basically when the season starts, he gets the crumbs that fall off the table. So really looking at that particular element, the next phase is to go into preparation for games. So we want to try and maintain some of our key areas. We want to maintain our speed and power elements and our weight training elements when we're going through, because obviously those first couple of practice games we're actually not trying to peak for those games. We're still trying to maintain our training through into those games, so we are going to come in slightly fatigued, but we are going to step up our individualised skills, our team skills and our unit skills on basically block training. So we go from a 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 2 days off protocol in the pre-season to basically AM, PM, AM, PM off, and AM, PM, AM, PM off, and then the final day, Friday, Monday, AM and PM on, and then the weekend free unless we're actually preparing for games. We still have the con games. We still want to look at the individualisation of the program, but we're looking at top-up conditioning rather than designated extra conditioning, and to back onto the individual skills and the team skills. For example, on a Monday to Friday schedule, Monday AM would be speed, power and low body weights followed by units. The PM session would be team skills into con games. Tuesday morning would be individual skills into units into upper body weights, and the PM would be off for that particular day, and restoration, recovery, massage and all our therapies associated with that. Wednesday morning would be unit skills into combat rugby conditioning. The PM on Wednesday would be individual skills into team skills into extra conditioning based around specific need. Could be some speed top-ups there as well. Thursday morning would be individual skills into units and into upper body weights again, with the Thursday off. And then the Friday would be, the AM would be speed and power and lower body weights into units, and finishing the day and the week off with team skills and con games. So again, within that there's quite a degree of individualisation can occur. We're still trying to maintain our neural, metabolic and mechanical conditioning, I guess more so it's transitioning into preparing to play. So it's more geared towards the team focus with the individual top-up conditioning from there, which really contrasts with the pre-season, initial pre-season, which if I go through that just in concluding, is the Monday would be the readiness to train and monitoring, followed by speed and power and weights in the morning, and then the afternoon we'd have a three-way rotation with skills, squash and handball, with a pool recovery to finish that particular day off. On the Tuesday we'd have mobility and prehabilitation type work into skills, into combat conditioning and upper body weights. The PM session would be con games into intervals for the metabolically challenged, and then into extra upper body weights for the guys who require a second hit of hypertrophy work for that day. Wednesday's completely off. We'd maintain some active recovery for those days for the players, but we don't want to see them on those days. Thursday is basically a repeat of Monday with a few changes. Thursday is a readiness to train, to monitoring, to speed and power and weights again, lower body weights. In the afternoons again a three-way rotation between skills, water polo and basketball, and then into a restoration in that particular Thursday afternoon. Friday morning, mobility and prehab into skills, into combat rugby conditioning, into weights, upper body, and then afternoon would be con games, intervals and upper body weights again for that group we mentioned earlier with their own recovery. So you can see that there is a distinct difference between the two blocks. At this stage we're looking at a 3-week of that first block where emphasis on conditioning, then a week where the players are sent away just to relax and to recoup, and then the next block comes into the 3 sessions, then a break of our preparation into getting ready to play.
Cool. I think that sums up fairly nicely the topic. I think just to kind of surmise the entire thing, Ashley, if you were to give one piece of advice to a trainer running their first pre-season with an amateur team or a club team, what would that bit of advice be?
I think obviously it's when you're working with amateur teams, the bottom line is that depending on the skill level of the group you have, I've seen this a lot of times in teams across the world, as far as in my particular area is concerned with rugby, but also rugby league as well, in that the higher the skill level across the board of the team that you have, the less you come in cooked metabolically. So you can actually win those initial games purely on the skill level of the group of players that you have, and then you develop game sense, game fitness building into it, so you actually continue through the season with that regard. If the group of people you have is not that skillful across the board, then I think you've got to come in slightly overcooked physically, and you win those initial games on fitness, and then that'll take you through. But I guess the key element for me is to always have the ball involved in pre-season conditioning. There's so many great conditioning games out. The Rugby League Coaching magazine in Australia is one of the greatest resources that I've ever used as far as looking at those games. And those games are available out there, and if anyone wants to contact me, I'm happily share those games that we use on a regular basis with. But the more fun you can make the pre-season, with the ball in hand, I think the greater buy-in from the group that you'll get. The strength training obviously is very, very important. I don't want to de-emphasise that, but a good, solid, basic program is what you need to put in place. And again, if anyone's interested, I'm more than happy to share those particular elements of what we do. But there are numerous articles that I've penned over the years on elitefts.net and also getstrength.com that you'll be able to find a plethora of training information based around those key elements of the biometric skill development that we put in place in the pre-season. So thanks for listening. Thanks Mark Keys, my assistant here at Edinburgh, for conducting this interview, and send any questions through. My email address is ashley.jones@edinburghrugby.org. Thanks very much.